Good morning, dear attendees, and we welcome you all to today's webinar on furniture industry latest trends. My name is Keshav Murthy, and I represent the sales and business development function of BSA India. With us, we have Mr. Stefano Botteni, the Director of Sales and Marketing, and our main presenter for the day, Mr. Giuseppe Morando, joining us from Italy. Before we proceed any further, let me take a moment to introduce BSA India, which is a direct subsidiary of BSA Group Italy, a global leader in technologies for processing wood, glass, stone, plastic, and metal. Operating worldwide through 12 industrial sites, 39 branches, 300 agents with over 4,200 direct employees. In India, we have two world-class manufacturing facilities in Bangalore, spreading over 30,000 square meters. More than 1,000 machines are made every year that are exported to more than 60 countries. So today's webinar on furniture industry latest trends will be presented by Mr. Giuseppe Morando, a renowned architect and designer from Italy, currently in Bangalore. He has worked with some of the leading architectural firms where he has designed and executed numerous milestone projects in different countries. He is the founder of OSW, a network research group of architects and designers based in Italy, USA, and UK. His genuine speculative approach has taken him to explore new cultures and paths to design and produce cutting-edge products and architecture. Lately, Mr. Giuseppe and Biesse India are working together to explore his creative designs using BSA's advanced software and its machinability. During the course, through his vast experience in the field of architecture, he has shared few trends in the furniture design that are conceptually new to the Indian market, which we felt could be interesting for you to know and explore at your end. And hence, we invited him to share his ideas through this webinar. Should you have any questions, doubt, please feel free to ask during the dedicated question and answer session at the end of the presentation, or mention the questions to the moderator in the chat conversation box. Now, without any further delay, let me turn the screen over to Mr. Giuseppe. Now, I request Mr. Giuseppe to take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the introduction. And thank you, Biesse, for inviting me to this webinar. So again, we do something together, which is great and always exciting, even though right now things are a little bit messed up because of the overall world situation. We are trying to find a way to keep working together. So as Keshwa said, I'm an architect, Italian architect, but I've been in Bangalore for 5 years now. So what I would like you to take through today is about a very short presentation obviously of myself, but most importantly about what can be the trend from now on, or what I've witnessed in the last 3-4 years, and what for the Indian market can be learned and borrowed in order to adapt the new trends, the new design and workflows that are happening abroad and that can be adapted in the Indian context. So OSW is a network of architects which is based in different countries. We are comfortable with working on multiple scales, from the architectural scale to the product scale. So furniture is one of those, and we have been working to develop products which are somehow hybrid in between furniture and the pure product design. So the mix of our expertise, because there are people coming from the academy, people coming, professional coming from the profession. So thanks to this mix, the research on a side and the practice on the other side is always well balanced, and the academic experience feeds the professional and the practice one. So obviously, since I'm in Bangalore, I've been developing also this network in India, and I found which very interesting to develop it in the Asian market, because of obviously of the opportunities which are lying in the market. So yeah, so as you can see, these are a couple of projects which I've, sorry, this is going faster than it was supposed to be. So what I would like to start with today is what can be considered a report, let's say a report from abroad. So we are lucky enough as a group to be spread in different places, so we can witness at the same time what are the trends or what people are looking at in different countries at the same time. And that obviously it's a tremendous opportunity for us to be always up to date to the market demand. So that's why sometimes, like in this image, you will see that there are products that, depending on the markets, are more pushing on the material side, other ones are pushing more on the design side. And so what I consider the common ground of all of this is that technology is playing a key role. So if I look at the market abroad, it's today very common to work on with CNC machines on a complex projects. So from 5 to 7 axis CNC machines are today like very normal. Everybody wants to design and produce products using this technology, as well as additive machines, which are, so I'm talking about the 3D printing. 3D printing is opening up a new market altogether because of the chance of produce at home, something that before was only done by the big manufacturers. And this, married with artificial intelligence, is introducing a new way of thinking and a new way of designing, because artificial intelligence is driving the machines, it is driving the experience in designing. So this is something which obviously all across the world, depending on the market, depending on the local conditions, is happening with at a different pace, but is happening all over. And this is something which I think also in the very near future will expand a lot more in India. The other one, which I think is quite important, because it's a constant that I witnessed in the last at least 6-7 years, and this is again all spread across the world, is the awareness of the environment. So how my production and how I as a designer can impact the environment. So if my way of thinking, my way of producing, my way of selecting materials is actually taking in consideration the impacts on the environment. So the use of recyclable materials and recycled materials is obviously today like mandate. But on the other side, there is something a lot more important from my perspective, which is the management of waste. So what happens after or along with the manufacturing of the products? Am I taking in consideration if the waste will be too much or what? And obviously the local material availability. So it's far more safer from the environment perspective to use local raw materials rather than shipping them from abroad because of the carbon footprint. And to this, I would also add something which is more instead on the design side, which is the attention of clients from the client side on natural materials. And that I'm not talking about only obviously wood, but I'm also talking about material which belong to the cultural background of each country. So if I see Asia as a big market, bamboo, cane, and stone are very much in demand, together with natural fabric like cotton, linens, because people feel like the necessity, the need of connecting with nature. So the interiors and also the architecture of the buildings is more and more introducing natural materials. So this is something which also in Asia is happening, also in the Indian market is happening. So these three trends are the ones which I think are very important on the production side, but there is one which is like something in between all of them, which is more about the typology, because of the people preferring to work from home or because they need to work from home. And today, I mean, in the last few months, we have seen that is happening very widely. The merging and the blurring between home and office is happening. So this is introducing in the market new demands, new requests, especially for furniture which has to be ergonomic, has to be efficient, has to allow me at working for long hours, but at the same time can't look like too much office, because most of the offices today, especially in the big cities, are arranged within the living room most of the time, so, or in a small corner of my house. So not always there is the luxury of having a study which is fully dedicated for my home office. So that is introducing something interesting in terms of typology of furniture, because I need to have bigger space for storing my documents. I need more comfortable chairs. I need more natural light. So if I see, especially in the Indian market, sometimes clients are okay to have a study which is without window, because they say I use it very little. But if working from home will be more like constant and more like normal, then obviously also natural light and natural ventilation will be a request. So what can we learn from all of these things happening abroad that can be borrowed in the Asian market, in the South Asian market, in the Indian market? So when I think of one of the most interesting aspects of this innovation, I think of especially new typologies which request for modular furniture. I think of a typology which is growing very fast. The pace is very fast, and that requires a very well structured and organized manufacturer. I'm talking about co-living. Co-living is something that is picking up in the Indian market. Is already happening in the US, in Europe, where the market is already mature enough, and in India is starting basically now. I mean, I've been lucky to be involved in this process at the very beginning of it. So I'm talking about 3 years ago, where companies started to look at co-living as a new business model and as a new market because of a very simple reason. This is merging two expertise, two different experiences. The real estate on a side, so the knowledge of the market, construction rules, the ability of obviously building, and on the other side, the experience of hospitality. So how I offer spaces that can be used on a short term. So the mix of the two is creating the big markets of co-living, where the quality of spaces is really important, but has to be affordable. And so the result is, the outcome is a sort of upgradation of the hostel experience. So I still have spaces for stay, the accommodation spaces, but I have also spaces for obviously services and amenities. So if I compare hotel and co-living, the big shift from the hotel typology is that the space for accommodation has increased. So on an average, we have seen that hotel accommodation in the hotel industry is around 43%. In co-living, that will jump up to 73%. So you understand that if I'm a manufacturer and I'm involved in these markets, the modularity of furniture is quite important, because I'm talking about 73% of the area built, which is used for bedrooms. So when I say accommodation, it's basically bedroom. So the modularity there is quite important. So, and the ability from the manufacturer side of producing very quickly and with quality, high number of orders is quite important. So this is why I see something very interesting. And India especially, this is quite important, this typology, because of the youngest population, the millennials workforce, is increasing. So this is a data that we had in a couple of years ago. But India, by the end of this year, 2021 at last, will be the youngest country in the world. So that says obviously that co-living will be very much in demand. Especially because most of the people, most of this young population is moving from the villages more to the city. So this is important to understand that all these people moving need to be offered a service, need to be offered a space to live in. And PG is not anymore a solution, because PG doesn't offer this all these services, and millennials, especially Generation X, requires services as part of the offer. So for them, it's important that beside of the bedroom, I have also space for sharing. This is a generation which has growth with sharing as a embedded word in their culture. So they know that sharing is, they are every day using digital tools, so sharing for them is normal. So just for show you what can be the typology like, how it could look like. So there are typologies like this one, where there are split levels, or like more a traditional one with most of the time they are double beds with 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 wardrobes. This is the minimum request for a space. So this is quite compact. But you understand that if this is the typology of the bedroom, and this is replicated 500 times, because this is the number we are usually working with, the number of, the work is quite big. The order that can come to your office could be very, very big. If most of the co-living investments are considering from 300 up, 300 onward, the number of minimum beds to offer. So altogether, you might receive an order of 300 beds, 500 beds, not to mention the public spaces, the common amenities, restaurant, kitchens, library, all the services which are built to support the co-living as a topology, and sports also. Changing rooms, gym, squash court sometimes other, badminton, tennis, depending on the size and on the developer. So this is what you might receive as an order. There's a desk, side table, a bed with space, and as an additional storage, and sometimes they also bunk beds. And this is, in this slide, there is a sum up of what can be the topology of the furniture. So in order to face the budget constraint, which is quite important for this kind of topology, we as designer, we have proposed to minimize the hardware as much as possible, so no handles, for instance, so that the work is much faster. Everything has to be manufactured in the factory. There is no way of thinking of taking a project like this, producing the furniture on site. So that's why pre-laminated ply can be a very good option, very fast, that gives quality and at the same time a good speed of on the manufacturing side. And topologies like desk, which can add extra space for storage, because being the rooms quite compact, there is not much space for belongings. So people living there need to have extra small corners where they can store their belongings, like this table that can be folded up, hiding additional storage space on the wall. And especially this is very much requested by clients, is a bed that can offer extra storage just underneath it. And this is, let's say, an image of a very common topology that I designed at Urban Frame when we got the first project with this topology. So you see here there's extra storage underneath the window. So all small details that makes the space more livable and more comfortable. Adding obviously some touch of color and keeping in mind maintenance. People in these spaces are expected to stay at least 2-3 months, up to 6 months, up to 1 year. This is another topology where the mix of MS frame is leaving the space underneath the table completely free to store luggage, and also open wardrobe. This is something which I see as a constant both in the hotel industry and in the co-living. This has a double benefit, gives a double benefit. On a side, cut down the cost because there is less wood and less hardware. On the other side, especially for the co-living, for the hotel topology, makes the maintenance a lot easier. People tends not to forget anything in the hotel. And when I clean, from the maintenance team perspective, cleaning are much faster. And obviously, being the space quite compact, we need to work on details like the counter, wash basin counter, to squeeze and optimize spaces, and giving more like lights using huge mirror surfaces. One more thing which I consider important as a trend is a topology of furniture which is completely removing the hardware from the manufacturing and from the design flow. That requires very high accuracy because the detail has to be very well done, very well designed, and very well executed. Material can vary from, according to the budget, from plywood to solid timber in panels. And that also offers the chance of minimizing the wastage. Because I'm working with a panel, and we did that panel within the panel, I have to get all the pieces I need. So this on the right-hand side is an example of how a plywood panel can have within it the legs, the counter. Once I assemble everything, I'm using the panel completely with very little wastage. Obviously, this requires to work on accuracy, as I said. That is the key. Also to have a fine detail, and this is just a table. The first on the left hand side is a table that can be for both home and office. What happens is that what I see, I mean, for a long time, this typology this way of designing and manufacturing furniture was considered cheap and not offering the idea of communicating that idea of luxury. But today, I would say the same logic has been using for marble. For instance, I am currently designing a family of tables that, with the same logic, but with marble, can obviously give that idea of more luxury which clients sometimes look for. So that doesn't mean necessarily that this way of designing is poor or cheap. If you see what I'm talking about, the detail of the materials to be very well done. So obviously I'm talking about here laser cutting machines, which can offer this level of accuracy, and bent plywood to design, for instance, to manufacture a chair like this where there is no screw at all, only glue. And if you imagine on this table to replace the wood counter with marble, for instance, you get a different table. So you get a different level of quality and luxury if you're looking for luxury. So this is something that I see very much as something doable and achievable in the Indian market, because again, the young population, which is maybe more open to accept a different way of conceiving the furniture, and because obviously they are more traveled people, so they can see what is happening around, and they are more open to accept innovation in their houses. Then we mentioned before natural materials. Natural materials, we were talking about wood, we were talking about bamboo, and natural material also for the upholstery. So I'm talking about cotton and linen, first of all. This not only in the home industry, but by experience also in the hotel industry. Because clients are looking for something which is more, let's say, genuine, which is not faking in the material, something which is concrete but is looking like leather. And there are plenty of ties which are today going to that, offering this option. So when I think of interiors which are more natural-like, I'm talking about interiors where, as you see, the bench is in a rough cotton, where I can introduce a very nice wood solid timber table, which add a touch of proper natural mood, mixed with other materials, like this one in this image with stone rather than laminate. And obviously, when we work with different materials, like in this image, like stone, marble, and wood, you need to work nicely. I mean, as a designer, I'm obviously requested to have that eye on detail, but you as a manufacturer are also requested to have this kind of mindset of looking for and ensuring that the level of the detailing is very well executed. So I would say when we talk about natural material, we always think of wood as the first option. And if I mention bamboo in your mind, you might picture images with the bamboo, with the bamboo sticks, which are bent, creating nice geometries. But when I mention bamboo, I mention bamboo with another application, with a different application, and with a different material way of using bamboo. So if you see these 3-4 images, all of them have in common bamboo as a natural material. The difference is that this project, which I did in Italy, is using pressed bamboo panels and working with laser cut machines. Obviously, laser cutting machines, you can achieve this kind of geometry. So I can also marry the very contemporary design and look by using a natural material. This is important. So this is what I mean by using today natural materials, not necessarily something which looks like, like countryside style, but something that can be very contemporary. And this is also having another benefit. If I'm using local material, raw material, I'm also helping the local community to grow. And this is also another side, another aspects of our profession as designer, to think of the local community. If is there anything that I can do when I design that can help the local community? If I'm designing in India, in Bangalore, something that can help the Bangalorean community. If I'm designing in US, I should take advantage in a good way of what is available there, material-wise, expertise-wise. So people and community that can work for that specific project. It's a way of thinking about also environment and the impacts on the environment, because it's not only considered like environment as landscape and nature, but also in terms of society. If I'm doing something which is impacting positively the society. And multi-purpose is about flexibility. I was mentioning before home office, and today in cities where also Bangalore, Bombay, all the big cities in India are witnessing a shrinking in the dimension of the apartments because of the market. So this is also happening in Bangalore. The typology available in the market is not anymore that big. People can afford big houses. Builder can afford big houses because if there is less demand, so they are all of them. They are meeting in this in between when offering a typology which is slightly smaller. That requires two things. One is more efficient use of space, and on the other side, obviously, also a different, a more multifunctional furniture. So kitchen, for instance, can have a different, kitchen and living sometimes can be one attached to the other, but maybe I'm using the table, the dining table also for working from home. So how this table can adapt to multiple uses, working as a dining table, as an office table. I require additional storage in the living rooms because I need to store my laptop, my documents, my bag, my office bag, and need to be handy. So I need to reach them very quickly. I can go to another room and pick up my stuff and then start to work. So these are small things. I'm not thinking of a big change in the industry with different new typologies which are impacting the houses, but small things which make the space more usable. Just maybe increasing the size of the dining table, that can be a way of. And in fact, what I want to share with you is an image that is maybe quite extreme, but that renders the idea of what I'm saying. So on the left-hand side, you see there is a kitchen. This is a kitchen with a table counter, which is completely embedded in it. And then I can slide it out, rotate, and have a big table without necessarily having the table in the middle of the room. This is something which is perfectly giving the idea of what I mean by flexibility of furniture, not necessarily, introducing big innovation. Home office, this is what I mean by adding storage and extending the surfaces for work. So on a side of the living room, I might add extra spaces for work, or I might add accessories to the table in order to, store temporarily my newspaper, my documents, the book I'm using for work, my laptop, or adding space, as I suggested in the co-living, underneath the table. So when I'm done, I put everything underneath. Or furniture like this one on the right-hand side, which we designed a few years ago. That is something is mixing two more things, decoration and functionality. Decoration, because of the system, it can spread all across, all along the wall and also on the ceiling, and functionality because it's a shelf system. So I can still measure the two, aesthetic and function. Environment. This is a little bit more, let's say, it's more about awareness than typology, furniture typology, or it's something more about the process. What I can do as a designer to control the quality of the final products and to control the carbon emission, the wastage, and the pollution. And you, as a manufacturer, what you can do in the process to take in consideration all of it. There is a good point for this in the wood industry is that among all the materials, wood is the one which are the lowest impacts on CO2. But the bad news, or good on a side, because it means a lot of business, is the origin of wood. I mean, if I'm using wood which is locally available, I'm helping again the community. I'm ensuring that the transport and the shipment is not affecting a lot the carbon footprint. But on the other side, I know that we know that India has doubled since the last 20 years the energy demand. So that is positioning India together with Japan among the countries which will use and request more energy. And this is a process which is not stopping. India is still growing, so the energy request will be higher and higher, and that will put India in competition with China and in competition with India, with US, when it comes to energy. This is quite important because this has an impact worldwide. Talking about the big picture, I mentioned before the wastage. And wastage is another side, which is quite important in terms of air emission, water emissions, and solid waste. So there are things which I can do. And if maybe in India there is not much of law that enforces to follow certain protocols, I know that I can follow international standards. International standards like ISO 50001, which helps the manufacturer to understand how to manage all of it. And there's also another side, something which is more practical. I'm sure most of you is aware of it. So how can I control the water pollution by using the right solvents? How can I use the solid waste? I can control the solid waste by using a proper management to minimize the wood chips, to use the right adhesives, to avoid sawdust to spread all across the factory for two things: for your benefit, the benefit of your employees, but also for the benefit of the environment, as well as the VOCs and other particulates which are related to the components and elements that you work with, which are obviously might pollute the air. So if you want to follow a process that we call eco-management, it's obviously for, first of all, for either because you need to manage regulations and restriction, or for an ethic behavior, which is maybe more important, because you might not be forced to do something, but as to be responsible, you might do something because you know that what you do has an impact on the environment. And there is another standards, international standards, that gives you the tools to have a so-called eco-management, to cut down the operational cost and the amount of generated waste. Last, and then we are almost done. I mentioned technology before. Technology means obviously very sophisticated machines on a side, but also means material performances. And the mix of the two gives a very good idea of what we can do to innovate. This is an interesting research which was transforming a product or an intelligent surface for a kitchen, where when I put the pan on, the light is on and start heating. So I don't see anything. Nothing is visible on the surface. It means that I can use the same table also for other purposes, not only as a kitchen. So this is something that also meets the demand of flexibility and more multifunctional furniture. When we move to the use, how can I use more sophisticated machines? On a side, there are things like this, which are 3D tiles, which are purely decorative elements that can be in many materials, and wood is one of these, obviously, as you see in the image in the center, but also the right-hand side and the left-hand side are done by wood and is just painted. And using the same technology, this is something that the image that I showed you before, it was black. This is the white version of something which is done shelf system and decorative system at the same time, that can unfold and rope on the ceiling and create a false ceiling, embedding light. So it's something that again is flexible. This is what I mean by flexible and multifunctional. And there is something which I want to mention, because this is what gave the starts to the collaboration with Biesse. And in India, it was a very nice discover for me, because I was looking for a partner that was able to do something which we designed for the European market, and I needed a partner for the Indian market. And so I was introduced to Biesse, and I discovered this amazing world of machines that can do pretty much everything. And this is a 3D tile which we made in wood, as you see here on the right-hand side, which you can assemble and compose never-ending wall if you want, as you see in this image. And there are tiles that can be placed one next to the other, and that can create this nice pattern. And we presented these projects and these products in Ahmedabad for the Ahmedabad Design Week. It was quite interesting because people obviously were not very much used to use wood for such products. And you see how, if you, as a designer, now I talk as a designer, you think of the material, you can understand how your design, the geometry of your product can enhance the quality and the beauty of wood. If you see these lines which are giving the idea of the flow or the movement on the tile, this is exactly what I mean by when designer does its work and the manufacturer does his work at the best. And the collaboration between the two gives an amazing result. So we made two options, one in MDF and one in solid timber, just to give the idea of how flexible can be the material, because the MDF one obviously can be painted, and we didn't want to paint it because there was already the painted tile, and or can be wood if you want more a natural look, as we were talking before. You can have it, and this is an idea of how that can be composed in order to create a pattern on the wall. So just to summarize, so what we saw together, based on my experience and also based on what Biesse can witness as a company which is bridging to countries, to continents, is that there are trends abroad, always. From these trends, we can either learn and adapt that knowledge in the local market, or either I copy and paste. What I'm suggesting, what I feel like, is gives more future to the Indian market, is obviously to understand how these trends can be applied and utilized locally, because that is where opportunities are for us as designers, for you as manufacturer. If I copy and paste, or if I easily import from Italy or from France or from Germany also the raw materials, then I'm not doing a job which is taken in consideration the local market, the local community, so that it doesn't give a good impact also on the local environment. That's it. Thank you. I give it back to you, Keshav.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Giuseppe, for the presentation and your valuable thoughts on the latest trends in the furniture industry. We at BSA strongly believe that there is no end to one's creativity, and BSA, being a machine manufacturer, we always want to push the boundaries of our technology to go hand in hand with one's creativity. So that takes us to the question and answer session. Please feel free to ask your question to the presenter, Mr. Giuseppe. There is a first question to Mr. Giuseppe coming in.
Yeah.
What is the innovation quotient in the furniture industry?
Okay. Well, somehow I try to offer a couple of ideas of what can be innovation. From what I see, where I see more room for innovation is on two things. One is material-wise. The system that you saw before on the wall with the polygonal geometries, we made two different designs, two different options, one in wood and one in extruded polystyrene. And the company, the carpenter who had to work on that material, on extruded polystyrene, obviously needed to learn a little bit about the material, adapt the workflow, the process in order to manufacture something like this. And that was a very positive experience, because thanks to that product, he slightly changed the material he was everyday using and introducing new lightest, let's say, products in the markets. So if sometime, we think of one material only one material because of this is the experience we have, this is what we are used to see, but not necessarily that is the only way to do things. So that openness to mix materials and maybe to use some material which is not 100% belonging to the industry where I am working in, can help to innovate. On the other side is, I would mention one thing especially, which is something not really spread, not yet, which is the open source. Open source means I design something. As a designer, I design something. I give the information of that product to build the product, to manufacture the product on the web, and BS or any manufacturer can take this instruction and manufacture the products in place. That introduces the big innovation because of is cutting down on the cost of shipping, right? So if I design, let's say, a chair, okay, and there is all. I mean, I don't want to tell the detail of this open source process because it's. I mean, it takes too long. But I'm sure you are aware of. You are familiar with open source softwares. So softwares that you don't need to pay for, you download from the web and you start to use. Right. So there are plenty of software that you can use like that. Similarly, in the design industry, you can do the same. So there is obviously a policy and rules and everything. But what is important here to mention is that if you follow such protocol, I can design something in Italy, and you are the manufacturer in India. You download this information from the web, and you start manufacturing the products in wherever you are sitting. That gives obviously a great chance to also control your impacts on the environment. So I would say material and technology. Innovation in using the same material in other ways is obviously always there. But I would say there is no innovation if you don't invest in it. So either you are a designer or you are a manufacturer, you need to keep a small percentage, obviously, of your budget in order to introduce and think and study and research.
Okay. Thank you for the detailed explanation. We have a next question to you. Okay, this is quite interesting for you. Like, what are the challenges you have faced in Indian furniture industry?
This is interesting and it's somehow easy to reply to. So I think the biggest challenge is to get done exactly what we discussed about together. I mean, when I design, I always speak a lot with the carpenters or with the builder, and we agree on doing certain things, and we agree to do something, and for some reason, that something never happens the way we say, the way we agree. So this is the biggest challenge that I found, together with sometimes the mindset of not taking the challenge. Like, let's say, okay, Giuseppe, you want to do this, but why don't we do this way, which is safer because I know how to do it, and that's it, and it's a lot easier. Whereas I found that when we, together with the carpenter, for instance, I'm talking about carpenter especially because of working on also on interiors. There is a lot more personal sharing of ideas on site to solve issues. Is that when then you push yourself to do something that you thought you were not able to do, you succeed, then you have big, you are very, very happy and excited. So at the beginning, there is a little bit of, oh no, why you want to do this? At the end of the process, when the product is done, they say, oh wow, we are very proud of being, able to do this. And that requires always a lot of effort. Whereas in other markets, you can easily take the builder or the labels to do more. You don't need to push so much.
Okay. Yeah, that we can say it is quite a challenging situation.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. I think next question is for us. Which is the machine utilized to manufacture the product Helix and Rift, which has been displayed during the presentation? Okay. This is done in Rover A 5-axis machine. The machine we have that machine available in Bangalore showroom, and if anyone wants to have a live demonstration on this machine, we can arrange for a live demonstration. So that component has been done on that machine only. Okay, we have one more very interesting question coming in. This is basically about the trend which is evolving now because of this COVID-19 situation, where most of the companies are asking their employees to work from home. So the question goes like this: trends in the emerging home office segment, ergonomic office furniture in home comfort, and impact on the productivity. I saw in your first slide there was a little bit information was there. Can you please elaborate it a little bit, because the question is particularly about this.
Yeah, you're right. I tried already to talk about it. So there is one thing which is making working from home comfortable, as well as in the offices. So if you think of offices, most of the time we look for very lightful places because the productivity with natural light is very high. Is a data that when you have a lot of landscape around or in your office, when you have natural lights, your productivity increases. So it is not very much about the ergonomy of the chair. Obviously, it is also about the ergonomy of the chair, because if you are sitting comfortable, if your back is relaxed, you don't need to, you don't have pain just because you need to be sitting for long hours and work. But that aside, which I think everybody of us is aware of, because we are in an industry where ergonomy is obviously important. I would mention ergonomic spaces rather than just ergonomic products. So spaces that can meet our body requests, our body needs. So I'm talking about lights for sure. So in homes, this might be an issue. As I mentioned before, sometimes clients don't bother if the study, for instance, is in a dark corner of the house because there's no other room available. So they say, okay, let's take that corner, let's furnish it around and make it usable when I work from home. Because obviously at the beginning, we were not used to work so much from home. But if we do so, natural light obviously is important. You can't be facing a wall, dark wall with an artificial light for a long time. So this is I think the most important part. Second, obviously, is additional spaces, because if till day I was only living there, I was using the living room as a living room, and all of a sudden I move my stuff, my laptop, my handset, and everything there to work. I need extra space for storing all of it, and I would also mention something which is more on the air quality. Again, it's something that we can borrow from the offices. So in offices, we have the fresh air system, which is ensuring the right volume of fresh air in the offices, so that I can always breathe, good and clean air. In the house, this is not always happening. I mean, it's very rare to have a system like that. It's true that you can open windows, but in extreme climates, like can be India in some places, and the AC is on. After some time, when I sit long hours working, also the quality of air might not be that great. So I would focus more on these elements and landscape. Landscape is the data that all the big office corporate design firms can. There are a lot of data. If you have landscape in your space, your productivity is very much higher. So ergonomic of spaces, not just ergonomic furniture.
Okay, I think that's a quite interesting aspect considering the present situation. I think most of the companies also have decided now to continue with work from home indefinitely. For example, big companies.
I would also add that sometimes working from home can be a lot more productive because of, I don't know if you're aware of, but companies like WeWork, that I mean, let's say companies that are working on co-working. Okay, I want to mention something about the open spaces offices. Okay, is a data today collected after few years of experience in the office industry, that open spaces are not anymore so productive as it was supposed to be. It's true that you have more sharing because all the employees are sitting in the same space. Eye contact is, can make the communication much faster. But on the other side, for certain tasks, for certain jobs, this is not the best way of working. Think of those jobs where you need to talk a lot with your clients. So you need to be on the phone for a lot of time, or on a call, or where you need to assist somebody, and where your team has to work together. 3-4 of them has to work together, exchange ideas. So you can't every time move to the meeting room, because that might result in using only the meeting room and not using your desk. So studies have showed that. I don't want to say that we need to go back to the cabin office, because this is not the option, but more a mix of open spaces and private and closed space in the office might give more productivity. That's why working from home has increased for certain industries, has increased the productivity.
That's quite interesting. Okay, we have one more question which goes like this to you, Mr. Giuseppe.
Yeah.
Do you think that Indian consumers are ready for glue-free or less hardware furniture now, like the handleless drawer? Also, question continues. Can you little bit touch upon glorified kitchen and intelligent surfaces? This is a bit interesting and new for the Indian market.
Yeah, so I have no doubt that Indians are ready for glue-free and less hardware. Absolutely. What I've designed in the last 5 years has been following this simple rule. So maybe the hardware manufacturer are not very happy with me, but this is yes, absolutely is. possible, and clients are very, because it's not about the hardware itself. It's again about ergonomic functionality. So if you are giving them the choice of, you know, opening without trouble the drawer or the shutter, that is not, I mean, from the functional side, obviously, is not a problem. If it's more about aesthetic, I think the market is mature enough now. I mean, we don't need to. It's very mature for this. It's not mature maybe for material-wise, like for the finishes, and that is because of what is available in the market is not always the best unless it's imported. I'm talking about laminates. I'm talking about lacquered finishes. I haven't found so many able to do a lacquering which is a proper smooth lacquering without, you know, bubbles, without waving, because it's obviously expensive. And on the other side, clients might say, why should I spend on lacquering when I can have the same effects, gloss effects, with some acrylic film? So this is talking about the less hardware. I would say definitely yes, it is already there. It is already happening. In many showrooms, you can see that kitchens, wardrobes are without already hardware. I mean, without handles. About intelligent surfaces, this is a little bit more technical. Obviously, we are talking about systems. It's not even a product. We are talking about the system, because there is a product on a side, but there is also some technology to make that product perform in a way, in that way. So if we think of all the induction system, right, which is very, very, very common nowadays. Induction is putting together the electric parts and the glass parts and making a product. So in this intelligent surface, like in the product you saw, you need to have a soft layer, what I would call a soft layer, which is not visible, which requires a proper expertise to be developed. To make that surface to act like that. So I mean, I'm talking about sensors, sensors that when you place your pan on the counter, the sensor says there is an object, because it's taking is sensing the weight. So the weight, and says, okay, there is something. Then maybe I need to turn on the fire in that specific area. Fire, I mean, it's always kind of induction kitchen. So it's a little bit more sophisticated, but it's again very simple, because it's I mean, can be done by at the moment can be done only by big manufacturers, because they need to invest a lot on studying and researching on the system. But again, this is quite doable. And sometime 2-3 years ago, I also visited another showroom where I saw a similar kitchen where you could. It was not glass; it was like acrylic, like that solid acrylic material, where you had the chance to weight your ingredients and use those ingredients then right away in the next area of the table. So there was embedded below the surface something for sensing the weight of the ingredients and displaying what was the weight. I mean, how many grams or whatever. when I say glorify, when I also mentioned glorified kitchen, and this is, thank you for this question, is that I'm talking about kitchens which are not, which don't look like kitchen. Okay, so because of the shrinking of these home spaces, sometimes kitchen and living room are, let's say, connected, at least visually connected. So there is the need of making sure that the look, the feel, the look and feel of the space is one. So you don't feel that discontinuity between the living room area and the technical area, which is the kitchen. So across the years, I have seen, and this is now very, very common, that the kitchen is somehow elevated to the status of living room. Okay, but still has to give performance, has to ensure performance. So, for instance, there are kitchens which have this sliding counter to hide the sink and the sink area and the working area, so that when you are not using this as a kitchen, you can use it as any other, counter to work on. So that that's why also the idea of less hardware is, marrying this logic of creating spaces, furnished products, which are more, let's say, less technical and more elegant, because when you see at the angle, you immediately connect it with something to open, with a wardrobe. So the furniture is not anymore clean, neutral. So this is what I meant by glorified kitchens. Something that has to, again, is going back to the idea of, to the question of home office, because definitely if you want to work from home, and like we are doing today, you need to have a conf call. You don't want to have all the kitchens with all, the pans and utensils visible. You want to have on the background something which looks like as more professional as possible.
Yeah, I think that's quite a lot of technical things which needs to be kept in mind for designing this kind of furniture. Yes. Okay, we have okay, the last questions which is there. This is about lacquered furniture. What is the future market of lacquered furniture growing in India?
On this, I have a very, I mentioned the lacquered finishes before,
Yes.
the lacquered painting before. I haven't seen so much interest from the market, maybe just for because it's expensive, unless they do it the cheap way, which then is affecting the overall quality of lacquering. I think that will grow together with so the idea of kitchen itself is changing, is maturing. I share my experience by designing kitchens in Bangalore. At the beginning, for instance, we were talking about, clients were not open to have modular kitchens. So obviously, if it's not modular, everything has to be done on site. By itself, lacquered is not an option. The more and more clients are open to accept modular kitchen, and we made it for also a big developer, then the lacquering finish will come to picture, because it's something that you need to do in the factory. So when I'm talking about the common person, okay, is still giving the work to the carpenter to be done on site. the only thing you can do is going there with a pre-laminated ply, or laminating on site, which is even worse, because the quality of lamination made, obviously, as you know, much better than me, made on site can't be that good. After some time, it goes to hell. So so what I see is that the more the modular kitchen will pick up, the more also this finish will be accepted, because then it's like something which is coming from the factory ready and that to be installed. So also the cost of the lacquering will come down. Otherwise, if I need to get the lacquering painting done by some other, done in the factory, then installed on site on something which is not properly done, which is not modularly done, there is a lot of problem when I install it. The painting can scratch. So there is also a problem about installation, which is not to forget. So the reason why all these kitchens work in the West countries or in more mature countries, let's say, is because of they are completely done, made in the factory, and they need only to install it. All the lacquered shuttle and drawer come to site with proper packaging, with everything, so you don't remove any film, any protection, unless the last screw is done. So I see this as something that will pick up together with modular kitchens.
Okay, that's a quite interesting information. Now we have still more questions, but it's very unfortunate we really running out of time. So we will be sending a post-webinar survey link to the attendees where you can mention your question and interested webinar topic if you have any. Now I request Mr. Stefano to please take over the webinar to thank the attendees.
Thank you, Keshav. Thank you, Giuseppe. It is not surprising at all why Giuseppe has moved to India. His presentation is a testament to his decision of why he wants to explore the endless opportunities that lie ahead in the furniture industry in India. We really hope that this webinar was interesting and informative for all of you. If you wish to get in touch with Giuseppe, please contact us and we will be more than happy to pass on his contact to you. The next webinar on the 23rd of May will be on importance of sending technology, which is to communicate the importance of sending process, how this process can add value to your furniture production business. The details about the next webinar will be sent to you soon. Thank you all again for taking time to join us in this webinar, and we will see you soon. Have a great day ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.